Nothing beats the experience of playing on a high quality grand piano. The sound is large, complex, and full bodied with brilliant tonal projection. The action touch is incredibly responsive to the finest of musical details. The dynamic range is unparalleled. Surely, this is the ultimate piano playing experience, right? While there is so much to be said for the musical benefits of a grand piano, it may or may not be the best choice for you. Selecting the perfect piano for you means choosing the best possible instrument for your space, playing style, and of course, your budget range. When considering your options with these considerations in mind, you may find the very best piano for you is not what you originally had in mind. There's many different ways you could spend your money on a piano for a wide range of different results. Let's explore the major advantages and disadvantages between grand and upright pianos at different price points, sizes, ages, and build qualities to see what might work best for your needs, wants, space, and budget. Hi there, I'm Max with Family Piano Co. And today we're looking at upright pianos and grand pianos. And from both a player's perspective and a buyer's perspective, we're going to explore the differences in sound, the differences in touch, then of course the differences in space considerations, as well as how this all relates to price points as a buyer. So let's get going. When we're talking about the differences in sound between a grand piano or an upright piano, one of the things you're going to hear most is that a grand piano sound is grander, meaning larger, more volume, but more than that, you tend to get a much deeper sense of resonance, a much deeper sense of tone coming out of the instrument. Now, part of this is going to be due to the general size differences between uprights and grands, where generally with an upright piano, you're not going to approach the same string length of even this guy, a 5-foot baby grand piano, until you're approaching, about the 50-inch mark on an upright piano. With a grand piano, you're going to have nice long strings, which if you're punching above 5 foot, you're generally going to get bigger strings than even the biggest of upright pianos. Now, the next aspect to consider is going to be how that sound projects throughout the room. Now, with a grand piano, a lot of this comes into room placement, like where you're going to place it in the room. Grand pianos generally are going to be in the middle of a room. With an upright piano, being placed in the middle of a room, well, that's actually ideal for the instrument itself. And oftentimes, if you're able to remove it from the wall by about 3 feet or so, you're going to get the best possible sound projection. But the big difference is when you play on a grand piano, that sound, one, is emanating upwards, downwards, and right in your face. So from a perceptual standpoint, as a player, you experience that sound quite directly. With an upright piano, your sound is primarily coming out of the back. So the way that it encompasses the room, not quite as direct. And the way that you're going to experience it, it will sound a bit more enclosed, a little more muted. This depends a lot on the piano's overall tonal character, though. But no matter what, design-wise, that sound primarily is coming out of the back versus a much more immersive sound experience with a grand piano. Now, another important aspect to this is the shape of the instrument. Now, in musical and acoustic terms, it's very rare to have any, rectangular shapes in musical instruments. They tend not to be the best at projecting tone. Now, a grand piano soundboard is designed to project tone to the fullest capabilities. One of the reasons why, the grand piano is often considered the ideal design for a piano. The curved shape of the grand piano's soundboard generally helps center the sound right towards the middle of the soundboard, which allows it to project a lot better, get deeper resonance. However, we're talking about instruments of relatively equal build quality. If you have an upright piano that is inherently higher quality, just overall build, than let's say an older, cheaper grand piano, that upright piano very well could beat the sound of the grand piano. This is why it's very subjective, and it's going to come down to price point quite a bit. In the in the earlier prices, in the less expensive price ranges, a lot of the time you're going to get a higher quality standard on the uprights just because they're inherently less expensive instruments to produce. Grand pianos more expensive to produce, so at an equal price point, a grand piano, if it's a lower price point, might not have nearly as pretty of sound quality as an upright piano does at the same price point. For example, if your budget is really more in that $2,000 to $5,000 price point, which, for a lot of folks picking out their very first piano, that's a very realistic budget range. You're going to get a wide variety of different uprights that you can choose from, different sizes, different brands, different build qualities, everything like that. A lot more options of sound to explore. Now, in that same price range for grand pianos, you're generally going to be looking at very entry-level instruments or much older instruments in general. That may not have been maintained as well as the upright pianos. So generally, when it comes to price point, the lower you are in the scale, the more of an advantage there is to upright pianos. Near the very top of this price range, right around $5,000 or so, you're going to start to find the very first, entry-level brand new pianos, which are going to offer you brand new felts, brand new strings, and you're not going to find brand new grand pianos at $5,000 right around there. So essentially, you may end up be choosing between a brand new, upright piano or a much older grand piano. And a lot of the time, the sound projection of an upright piano with those fresh strings, fresh felts, it might seriously outplay an older, less expensive grand piano. Moving on to touch differences between upright and grand pianos. Now, this is one area where typically the grand piano is going to provide a far more luxurious experience, and a big part of this goes into key stick length. On the right side here we have a console piano. On the left side here we have a grand piano, and just take a look at the difference between those key sticks. It's pretty considerable, and this goes for really all uprights versus grand pianos. There are some uprights where they give you extended key lengths, and that's certainly a nice thing, but another part of the touch advantage of the grand piano is just in the way that the hammers are oriented. So on a grand piano, they're all oriented horizontally, which means that when you press a note, gravity helps assist that hammer in coming back to its resting position. Where on an upright piano, it's all done mechanically. So there's more room for things to go wrong with the upright piano's hammer reset. And on a grand piano, you're going to get a lot better note repetition. In fact, with an upright piano, you actually have to bring the note back up about 3/4 of the way before you can repeat a note. On a grand piano, you can repeat just about at any point in the process. Now, is this going to make a huge difference at the very early beginner stages? Not so much, because you're not going to be repeating notes very quickly, at the beginning stages, but pretty quickly into your piano playing, career, 2-3 years in, as you're approaching intermediate stages, fast note repetition is gonna become, a pretty big deal, especially once you're starting to play trills, tremolos, things like that will almost always come off easier on grand pianos, though of course this is where build quality really begins to come into focus. If you have just a higher quality upright piano versus a lower end grand piano, that upright piano might play quite a bit better. A lot of this will come into age as well. If you have a significantly newer upright that is a higher build quality, and that might be at the same price as a lower quality grand piano. At this point, you want to compare real directly each piano, side by side, and really think about which you enjoy playing the most. From a technical standpoint, that grand piano often will have the better sense of touch, but it really goes into the price. And as the price range goes up, the advantage really leans towards the grand piano. Now, another real important aspect of the touch difference is going to be key weighting. Now, this is one topic I'm usually pretty careful to not just definitively say grands are going to be heavier, firmer. A lot of times they are, and you can just see, the size of the action, the parts, generally is going to help make the grand a firmer instrument. Though a big thing is there's so much variation between different kinds of pianos. So you can easily find uprights that are, real nice firm if that's what you want, or real lightweight, and likewise with grand piano. So I tend not to view this as a bigger thing than some folks might. You will be able to find a piano, whether it's an upright or a grand piano, that has your desired touch weighting. Now, as you drift into the $5,000 to $10,000 price point, this is where the playing field really gets fairly equal between the offerings of uprights that you can find and the offerings of grand pianos. In this price point, you're going to start to find quite a lot of decent quality grand pianos that are larger sizes, so approaching 6 foot. Or even slightly larger than that, you can all find in this price range. But the big competition is the uprights get just way better at this price range as well. In this price point, the $5,000 to $10,000 range, you can start to find the majority of the lineup of new pianos for a lot of different piano brands. Kawai and Yamaha, you're going to end up finding, a good majority of their brand new pianos, uprights, can fall into this price range. For the kind of higher tier stuff of those companies, it's not going to be quite in that price range, but you're going to have a lot of new upright options of a lot of different sizes to take a look at and compare against grand pianos. At the very tippy top of this $5,000 to $10,000 price range, you might find the beginning entry-level brand new grands, not necessarily from big name brands, but from more average quality, no-name brands, stencil pianos. Typically in this price range, if you're looking at new instruments, the uprights are going to be, by and large, the best choice for you. But if you're looking at nice quality, used grand pianos, you can find a lot of really nice options in this price range that are going to compare, very favorably to a lot of the uprights that you play. At this point, though, you could still end up choosing the upright. There's going to be a lot of advantages, such as it can just be made with higher quality materials at this price point. And it can have more skilled workers working on the instrument at this price point, the 5 to 10 range. So it's still definitely a toss-up. You might find grands that, just really outperform, the upright pianos in this price range. Or you might find that, newer or, just very lightly used uprights of real high quality might just outcompete most of the grands you can find at this price point. Now, in the $10,000 to $15,000 price range, you're often going to find, real nice, lightly used name brand grand pianos, in the 5 to 6 foot range. And these can provide just an excellent playing experience. But you're also going to be up against, a lot of the very best uprights, brand new, from, big name brand companies. Now, there's going to be quite a few uprights that are still not in this price range, the 10 to 15, but they push further than that. And these are still going to be really good playing instruments, and they might be grands you find at this price range. So it's not necessarily 100% get a grand piano if this is the price range you're looking at. There's still quite a lot of variation, in the market here. But, if you're looking between the $10,000 to $15,000 price point, you're probably leaning grand piano, but this is where size is going to be a really big consideration. In general, it's pretty hard for any upright piano to be too big for a room, unless you're talking, a giant upright piano in a very small practice room. But even then, just due to the nature of how the sound projects, it's very rarely going to be too loud for the room. With a grand piano being too large for the room is a very real thing, to be concerned about. In general, if you have a mid-sized room, you can fit just about anything in the 5 to 6 foot range, and it might not, it's not going to overpower the room. The big thing to consider here is going to be the tone of the piano itself, where if you have a warmer, more mellow instrument, you can get away with a larger grand in a smaller space without worrying about it being overpowering. With a brighter piano, that can tend to get more overpowering in a smaller space. Now, when you're looking in the 15 to 20,000 and beyond price range, here you're going to find the very best of the upright pianos, and some of these can just be extraordinary instruments. And if you're working on limited space, these can provide a much more superior playing experience than, getting a grand piano that is going to overcrowd your space. In addition to some of the very nicest of the new upright pianos, you can also start to find, some lightly used, just ultra high quality German-made instruments in this price point. And, for the upright pianos, those are going to be some of the very finest instruments you could play on. Of course, in this price point, you're going to be looking at, both some real nice used Steinways, for example, some real high quality, world-renowned brands. Generally in this price point, the 15 to 20 and slightly beyond, they will be older. They will largely be some level of rebuilt. And they can be extraordinary instruments, but even at this price point, upright pianos still have a chance of beating out the grand piano. Now, some other aspects to all of this is, let's call the features of the instruments that you can find at these different price ranges. So in general, with uprights being on the lower end of the cost scale, you can find some real nice hybrid instruments. Those are going to be ones that are both acoustic and digital pianos. And those will be at comparable prices to a lot of entry-level grand pianos. But the big advantage of these guys are going to be, one, you can play with headphones on while having the same exact touch experience as, an acoustic piano, because it is an acoustic piano. As well as you can record, play with different instrument sounds, all of that stuff that you can do with a digital piano, you can do on a hybrid instrument, and that's a big leg up. A lot of the hybrid grand pianos are going to just start at a much higher price point than the equivalents on an upright would. So there's quite a large variety of things that you can find on an upright piano that might just win out. Another big thing as well is going to be the mute rail that you can find inside an upright piano. And this is just an excellent thing to have. For most upright pianos, especially the newer ones, by newer I mean just about everything post 1990 or 2000, depending on the model, a lot of them are going to have these mute rails. Mutes the volume about 60% of the way, while not really changing the touch of the instrument at all, so you can get the same level of practice, in. And essentially, this is going to be the acoustic piano's answer to being able to play a digital piano with headphones on. Now, this mute rail is going to be controlled by the middle pedal of the piano on an upright piano, and that means that they had to take away what the original purpose of that middle pedal was. But on grand pianos, for the most part, you get the true original, middle pedal, which is your Sostenuto pedal. And I'll say that is a pretty uncommonly used pedal. What it does is it selectively sustains a few notes and allows you to play the rest detached, which can be really useful if you're playing, transcriptions of organ music, or more modern, like post-1900 music that specifically calls for use of that pedal. It could be something that you really want to have and could sorely miss on an upright piano. Though the reason that, they put the mute rails in for most newer pianos is it's pretty uncommonly used. So for the vast majority of people, just having that mute rail is just a much, more useful feature to have. Another major advantage of an upright piano that goes primarily into its size is going to be just how easy it is to move in comparison to a grand piano. Now, an upright piano generally weighs about 450 to 550 pounds. Grand pianos can push the scale at 700 pounds all the way up to 1,000 or more. In general, to move an upright piano, at a minimum, you need two people.
though realistically you should have 3 people, one person to as a safety. On a grand piano, depending on the size, you could need a larger team of people to move it. Of course, we always recommend use professional movers. These are very fragile instruments, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could hurt the piano. But this, if you're using the professional movers, this also goes into the cost of delivery and moving the instrument. You're going to have this piano for many decades, so those move costs can really add up. For example, it's a $100 difference in our pricing model between delivering an upright piano and a grand piano, but that can really begin to go higher if there's extra steps involved, or if it's a significantly larger grand piano. Just typically, upright piano is just going to be a much easier thing to move around to wherever you want it to go. And on that note, another major thing is going to be stairs. A lot of people want to have a piano in their basement studio, or maybe they want to have it upstairs in their bedroom. Now, this is going to be very difficult to do with a grand piano most of the time, and you can expect much higher delivery charges if you want to take it up a full flight of stairs, or especially downstairs can be really difficult for movers. Most of the time, they're going to recommend an upright piano, and a lot of the time, they're going to say, if it's a large upright piano like this guy here, which is one of the very biggest upright pianos ever made, this might not really be tenable to take, up a flight or two of stairs, just depending on the overhangs, the turns. It just might not be able to be done. But with upright pianos, you get a wide variety of different, shapes and sizes, and that allows you to, have that be a real plausible thing to do to move it into a basement or upstairs. So as you can see, there's just so much that goes into choosing an upright or a grand piano. It's not quite as simple as grand pianos are just always going to be better, because so much of this is dependent on the kind of playing style that you have, exactly what your space looks like, and of course what your budget looks like. You're going to have a lot of good options to choose from, and the most important thing is to keep an open mind, try everything out, analyze it real carefully. I made a video last week about how to select a piano that focused a lot more on the actual playing components of the instrument and how it sounds in a very analytical way. Check that video out as well in regards to this video. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and please subscribe if you like this content and want us to continue turning out stuff like this. Thank you very much.